My cousins planned a beach trip and forgot my invite, posting, "No drama allowed." I'd leased the beach house, so I extended my stay and let them find locked doors upon arrival. I, 32M, never thought I'd end up teaching my cousins a lesson about respect, but here we are. Last month, I became the villain in my family's group chat, and honestly, I've never felt better about being the bad guy. The beach house in question belonged to my late grandmother. After she passed 2 years ago, the property went to my mother, who had zero interest in maintaining it. The place sat empty for months until I offered to take over the lease and handle all the upkeep. I paid the property taxes, fixed the plumbing, replaced the rotted deck boards, and turned it from a neglected shack into something worth visiting again. My mother was thrilled to have one less responsibility, and I got a private retreat 2 hours from the city. My cousins knew about the arrangement. They'd asked to use the place a few times, and I'd always said yes. I never charged them, never made a fuss about the extra cleaning I had to do afterward, never mentioned the broken outdoor furniture or the mysterious stain on the living room carpet. Family helps family, right? That philosophy died 3 weeks ago when I opened Instagram and saw the post. My cousin Derek had shared a photo of a sunset with a caption that made my blood simmer. Beach trip with the real ones. August 15th to 18th. No drama allowed. Tagged in the post were my other cousins, Marcus, Jennifer, and Sarah, plus a few of their friends I vaguely recognized from family gatherings. August 15th was next weekend. The weekend I'd already planned to be at the beach house. I scrolled through the comments and found Jennifer responding to someone asking about the location. She'd written that they'd scored an amazing beach house through family connections, acting like she'd pulled off some impressive feat. No mention of me. No mention that the house was mine to lease out. Just vague implications that they'd arranged something special. The real kicker came when I checked the family group chat I'd muted months ago. Scrolling back through the messages, I found their entire planning conversation. They'd discussed dates, who was bringing what food, whether they should invite this person or that person. My name appeared exactly once, when Sarah had asked if they should tell me about the trip. Derek's response was blunt. He said I'd been weird and distant lately, always bringing up stress and problems, and this trip was supposed to be fun and drama-free. Marcus had agreed, saying I'd probably just complain about them messing up the house anyway. Jennifer had added that I'd probably say no if they asked, so why bother dealing with the awkwardness? They decided I was too much drama. Then they'd planned to use my beach house without asking. I sat there staring at my phone, trying to process the audacity. These were people I'd grown up with, people I'd helped move apartments and lent money to and covered for when they'd screwed up. And they'd collectively decided I was the problem, the drama, the one who needed to be excluded. The old me would have called Derek, tried to talk it out, maybe guilt them into an apology. But something snapped. I was tired of being the person everyone took for granted. I was tired of doing favors for people who saw me as an inconvenience. So I made a decision. I opened my calendar and extended my beach house reservation from August 10th through August 19th. Then I packed my car with enough supplies to last 10 days and drove down that Thursday, a full day before they planned to arrive. The house looked perfect when I got there. I'd spent Memorial Day weekend painting the shutters and pressure washing the deck. The interior smelled like salt air and the lavender detergent I used on the linens. I unpacked slowly, putting my groceries in the fridge, my clothes in the master bedroom dresser, my books on the coffee table. I was settling in for a long, peaceful stay. Friday morning, I woke up early and drove to the local hardware store. I bought new locks for both the front and back doors. The installation took maybe 40 minutes. I tested both locks multiple times, making sure they worked smoothly. Then I took the old keys that my cousins had somehow acquired, probably copied from the spare I'd given my mother, and tossed them in the kitchen drawer. Useless now. I spent Friday afternoon on the deck with a book and a beer, watching the waves roll in. My phone buzzed occasionally with messages in the family group chat, everyone getting excited about the trip. Jennifer posted a photo of her suitcase. Marcus shared a Spotify playlist titled Beach Vibes Only. Derek reminded everyone to arrive by 3 p.m. on Saturday so they could hit the beach before sunset. I didn't respond to any of it. I just kept reading and drinking and enjoying the quiet. Saturday arrived with clear skies and a pleasant breeze. I made coffee, scrambled some eggs, and ate breakfast on the deck while planning my day. I decided on a morning beach walk, followed by some grocery shopping in town, maybe a late lunch at that seafood place near the pier. Nothing elaborate. Just a relaxing day at my beach house. Around 2:30 p.m., I was coming back from town when I spotted them. 3 cars pulling into the gravel driveway, music blaring from Derek's Jeep. I'd parked my truck around the side of the house, partially hidden by the overgrown hedges I kept meaning to trim. From my angle, I could see them piling out of their vehicles, laughing and hauling coolers and beach bags toward the front door. I stayed in my truck and watched. Derek reached the door first, key in hand. He tried to unlock it. The key didn't fit. He tried again, jiggling the handle. Nothing. I could see confusion spreading across his face as he called Marcus over. They both examined the lock, tried their keys, exchanged bewildered looks. Jennifer walked up asking what the holdup was. Derek explained the lock situation. She tried her key too, with the same result. Someone suggested maybe they had the wrong house, which was absurd because this was literally the only house on this stretch of private beach. Sarah pointed out that the address matched, and besides, she recognized the deck furniture. That's when Derek noticed my truck. I saw him squinting at it, then walking closer. Recognition dawned. He pulled out his phone. Mine rang 10 seconds later. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. Then Marcus called. Then Jennifer. I silenced my phone and watched them huddle together, gesturing animatedly at the door, then at my truck, then back at each other. Finally, I got out and walked over. The look on Derek's face was priceless. Confusion mixed with dawning realization, mixed with something that might have been shame, but looked more like irritation. He asked what I was doing there, and I explained calmly that I was staying at my beach house, the one I leased and maintained. He stammered something about them having plans to use the place this weekend, and I nodded and said that was interesting because nobody had asked me about it. Jennifer jumped in, saying they'd assumed it would be fine since I'd always let them use it before. I agreed that I had always let them use it before when they'd asked. But they hadn't asked this time. They'd deliberately excluded me from a trip to my own property because they'd decided I was too dramatic. The silence that followed was deeply satisfying. Sarah started to say something about it being a misunderstanding, but I cut her off. I told them I'd read the group chat. I'd seen exactly what they'd said about me, about how I'd bring down the vibe with my problems and stress. I'd seen them decide I wasn't worth inviting, then plan to use my house anyway. Marcus tried a different approach, getting defensive and saying I was being petty. He claimed they'd just wanted a fun weekend without heavy conversations, and I was proving their point by making this difficult. I asked him how he'd feel if I borrowed his car for a weekend trip without asking, then told him he was being petty when he objected. He didn't have an answer for that. Derek suggested we could all just share the house for the weekend, make it a bigger group thing. I declined. I told them I'd extended my stay through the 19th, and I'd be enjoying my property alone, as planned. They were welcome to find accommodations elsewhere. There were hotels about 30 minutes down the coast. Jennifer got upset then, saying they'd driven all this way and made plans and bought food. I reminded her that I'd driven all this way too and made plans, and I'd actually bothered to secure my reservation. Her lack of planning wasn't my emergency. They stood there for a while, probably hoping I'd crack and let them in anyway. I didn't. I walked back to the house, went inside, and locked the door behind me. Through the window, I watched them load everything back into their cars. The whole process took about 20 minutes. Derek tried calling me twice more. I didn't answer. They left around 3:15 p.m., and the silence that followed felt like victory. Update 1. The fallout started that evening. My phone exploded with messages from various family members, each one angrier than the last. My aunt demanded to know why I'd embarrassed her children. My uncle called me selfish and spoiled. Derek sent a long text about how I'd ruined their weekend and wasted everyone's time and money. Jennifer posted a vague status on social media about fake family members and betrayal. My mother called around 8 p.m. She'd heard the whole story from my aunt, naturally presented as me being unreasonable and cruel. I walked her through what had actually happened, showed her the screenshots from the group chat where they'd badmouthed me and planned to use the house without permission. She went quiet for a moment, then admitted that was pretty disrespectful, but maybe I could have handled it differently. I asked her how she would have handled people stealing from her, because that's essentially what they'd tried to do, take something that belonged to me without permission. She didn't have a good answer. She just sighed and said family was complicated. The weekend itself was incredible. I spent Saturday evening grilling fish on the deck, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. Sunday, I went kayaking in the morning and explored the tide pools in the afternoon. Monday, I did absolutely nothing except read an entire novel cover to cover. No drama, no stress, just me and the ocean and the peace I'd been craving for months. The family group chat became a war zone. Derek posted a long message about how I'd shown my true colors and proven I valued property over people. I finally unmuted the chat long enough to respond. I wrote that I valued respect over entitlement, and anyone who wanted to use my property in the future could start by asking permission and not talking trash about me behind my back. Then I muted it again. Sarah was the only one who reached out privately to apologize. She admitted they'd been wrong to exclude me and wrong to assume they could use the house without asking. She said she'd tried to suggest inviting me during the planning stages, but had gotten outvoted. I appreciated the apology, but told her that staying silent while everyone else trashed me wasn't much better than joining in. Update 2. By the end of my extended stay, the family consensus had split into camps. Half thought I was completely justified. Half thought I was a petty tyrant who'd taken things too far. The latter group included my aunt and uncle, Derek, Jennifer, and Marcus. The former group included my mother eventually, Sarah, a couple of other cousins who'd heard the full story, and my grandmother's sister, who called me specifically to say she was proud of me for standing up for myself. The beach house became a point of contention. My aunt suggested during a phone call with my mother that maybe the property should be shared more equally among the family, since it had belonged to Grandma originally. My mother immediately shut that down, reminding her that Grandma had left the house to her, not to the entire extended family, and she'd chosen to lease it to me because I was the only one willing to maintain it properly. Derek tried to organize a family intervention about my behavior. He actually used that word, intervention, like I was the one with the problem. My mother told him to drop it. I returned home on August 19th feeling more relaxed than I had in years. The beach house had given me exactly what I needed: space, peace, and confirmation that I'd made the right choice. I wasn't going to let people walk over me anymore, family or not. The real surprise came a week later when I got a text from Marcus. He asked if we could talk. I was skeptical but agreed to meet him for coffee. He showed up looking uncomfortable, ordered a black coffee he barely touched, and spent 15 minutes apologizing. He said he'd had time to think about what happened and realized they'd been completely out of line. He admitted they'd taken me for granted and made assumptions they had no right to make. He didn't expect forgiveness. He just wanted me to know he understood why I'd done what I did. I told him I appreciated the apology. I also told him that actions mattered more than words, and if he wanted to rebuild trust, he'd need to show me over time that he actually meant what he said. He nodded and said that was fair. Derek and Jennifer never apologized. Derek actually doubled down, posting on social media about how blood family should always come first and how disappointing it was when relatives chose grudges over relationships. I didn't bother responding. I just blocked him and moved on. The beach house became my sanctuary after that. I started going down every other weekend, sometimes alone, sometimes with friends who actually respected me and my property. I changed the access code I'd installed and kept the list of people who knew it very short. My cousins weren't on it. 3 months later, Jennifer got engaged and started planning her wedding. The family group chat filled with excited messages about venues and dates and dress shopping. Then came the uncomfortable moment when she announced that wedding invitations would be going out soon and she hoped everyone could make it. I got my invitation in the mail 2 weeks later. It was nice, probably expensive. The reception venue was listed as TBD. I texted Sarah to ask if Jennifer had found a place yet. Sarah said no. Venues were crazy expensive and Jennifer was stressing about it. 2 days later, Derek messaged me privately. He asked, very carefully, if Jennifer could use the beach house for her wedding reception. He said she was on a budget and the house would be perfect and he knew we'd had our issues, but this was important. I read the message 3 times, trying to decide if he was serious. He was. I typed out a response asking if he remembered what had happened the last time they tried to use my house. He said this was different. This was a wedding, and families should support each other during big moments. I told him no. I told him that respect goes both ways, and I wasn't running a free event venue for people who'd made it clear they didn't value me. He called me heartless. I blocked him too. Jennifer found a venue eventually, somewhere inland that wasn't nearly as nice as the beach house would have been. I heard through my mother that she'd cried when Derek told her I'd refused. I felt a small twinge of guilt. Then remembered the group chat messages about me being too dramatic to invite, and the guilt disappeared. I didn't go to the wedding. I sent a card with a modest check and spent that weekend at the beach house instead, enjoying the sunset from my deck, drama-free. Looking back now, I don't regret any of it. Setting that boundary, changing those locks, refusing to be a doormat, changed how my family treated me. The ones who mattered stuck around and learned to respect my space. The ones who didn't aren't in my life anymore, and I'm better off for it. The beach house is still mine. I'm still the only one who maintains it, pays for it, and decides who gets to use it. And every time I drive down there and unlock those doors I installed myself, I remember that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let people take advantage of you anymore. Some family members still think I overreacted. I think they're wrong. But either way, I sleep just fine at night, usually with the sound of ocean waves in the background. If you'd like to see more stories like this, a gentle tap on the subscribe button would mean the world to us.